And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap. This week, after another solid win, I'm joined by Nikki. How you going, Nikki?
I'm going well.
Very good to hear. And Macca, you're over your little lurgy, are you?
Nearly, just about.
Yeah, it takes a while. They hang around a little bit, those things.
Oh, well, I've got man flu. That's always worse than female flu.
Yeah, and it's a real thing as well. Don't let the girls fool you. It's actually a real thing.
I'm amazed he's here and still doesn't have another 2 weeks out.
Come on, Nikki.
Well, shows how brave I am, Nikki.
Oh, we never doubted that, Macca.
Actually, I heard a Mrs. Macca comment in the background. Was that right, Macca?
Yeah, she did say bull.
We like Mrs. Macca.
Right, well, sexism aside, let's get on with the weekend's results because it was another good win by Adelaide. But let's first of all go through the rest of the AFL's results. And, of course, Thursday night we had the Hawks up against the Power at Adelaide Oval. And the Hawks, after a little bit of an arm wrestle, got away to win by 22, 15-11 to 12-7. Friday night was a huge win by the Swans over the Cats down at Cardinia Park there. The Swans getting up 98-60 pretty convincingly in the end. The Cats looked a little bit flat, surprisingly, for a home game.
Mediocre?
Yeah, quite
mediocre. Did they look mediocre?
Certainly gives us a little bit of confidence meeting them down there in a couple of weeks' time, that's for sure. Yesterday we had the Collingwood team giving us a big favour and beating the Giants by 32 points, 19 goals 11 to 14 goals 9. Obviously we got Collingwood next week, so it's good to see them get their good game out of the way. The Suns had a good win, but at a cost over the Lions in a good Q clash. Suns getting up by 26 points. The Bulldogs just getting handed another game by the umpires, getting up over Richmond by 10 points, 85-75. That bloody free kick and 50-metre penalty was an absolute shocker.
I don't get it.
Absolute shocker, Macca, that was.
Yeah.
They need Victorian teams in the finals.
What's it? The Bulldogs get given bloody everything they do. It's disgusting.
I'll tell you what, that was Damien Hardwick. I thought he was going to neck someone. I really did. The other forgettable game, the Melbourne Demons getting up over the Fremantle Dockers in a relatively low-scoring affair, 87-55. That was where was that? Oh, that was at TIO, wasn't it? Yeah, in Darwin?
That was.
Pardon me.
So that one was because Melbourne actually played well up there.
Yeah. Well, they should too. So they've given the game away. So, and then today, obviously, we had West Coast getting up over a pretty disappointing Kangaroos. They've really tailed off. 16 goals, 8-104 to 11 goals, 672. Saints getting up over the Bombers in what seems to have been a fairly hard-fought win, 109-98. I didn't watch the game, obviously, because who would? And
Me?
more. Oh, yeah, but you're a bloody masochist. We've already established that.
It actually wasn't bad the last quarter.
Come on. What were we talking about polishing turds the other day?
No, actually, there's probably Danaher's probably going to win the Mark of the Week award. He took an absolute screamer.
Did he?
And then being Danaher, missed the shot on goal. and very lucky for it actually to be a point. It was heading towards out in the fault.
Now, look, Nikki, this is almost worth a fine, but your bloody headphone cable is scratching again.
Sorry.
Wow. You're like an experienced campaigner here. I expect better.
It's cold.
Yeah, it is cold. I've got about 7 layers on as well. And then, obviously, the one we're all interested in, the Crows getting up in a pretty workmanlike display, I thought, after a gallant first half by Carlton. 16 goals, 11, 107 to Carlton, 7 goals, 5, 47. We got up by an even 10 goals in the end, which leaves the ladder looking quite favourable for us at the moment. We've obviously jumped up to third spot on percentage. We've got the Hawks on top on 48 points. We've got, 3 teams now on 44 points. The Swans with us about 6 percentage points behind, and then the Bulldogs with shitty percentage, 118. Second worst percentage in the top 8. The Eagles did themselves some favours with a win today, so they're on 40 points along with Geelong, who have slipped down, GWS, who have also slipped down, and then North Melbourne hanging in there and probably lucky that there's really no threat from the next couple of teams. We got Port, Melbourne, Collingwood, St Kilda all on 28 points. Richmond and Carlton on 24, the Suns on 20, Freo on 12, and the Lions and the Bombers bringing up the rear on 4 points each. So, hooray for us, we're in the top 4.
I think the way we're lying at the moment, if we beat Collingwood as we should, isn't Hawthorn, I think, are playing Sydney. And
Yep.
Good. And whoever wins or loses, I think we end up second as long as we win.
Well, no, I think if Sydney win, they'll go top.
No, we've got to...
Yes, but we'll have the same number of wins as Hawthorn, but better percentage.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, very true. So we will be second, assuming let's beat Collingwood, because Collingwood always do well in Adelaide. So not a game to take lightly, considering their tails will be up a little bit after a solid win over the weekend. So So your initial thoughts on the game, guys? What did you think?
Well, I thought that on Tuesday I predicted a 10-goal win, and I said that Jacobs would give their rucks a hiding, and that would start from there. And I don't want to say I'm Nostradamus, but that's what happened. and I would have been.
Hang on. Can you give that lady a microphone?
No, I'm going to give her one over the head in a minute.
Oh, we don't condone violence.
No, you will not.
Come on now.
No, you will not.
Right, back to what I was trying to say. Was that no? I think you said it was a workmanlike display, and I think you're absolutely right, Feenix. If we did what we had to do, I thought that was about the result we should have got. And because every team gives some resistance early, and it's very hard unless you're playing a mob of amateurs, to get away to a 10-goal lead very early in a game. So you have to work your way to it. And also the conditions after half-time, I think it made it just a little bit more credible again. And I think in one way it suited us, because we had to work really hard to get our goals because of the conditions. We had to work harder. So overall, I thought it was a workmanlike display. It showed that we are maturing as a team because we did what we should have done. And, it was about the right result.
Now, keep something in the bag, Macca. You don't want to play all your cards yet. That was a very nice initial thoughts. Nikki, what do you reckon?
Well, I actually rang Mum and Dad, who watched the game at the MCG.
What, for permission to come on? Or?
No, to see what they said, what their impression was watching it live.
Mm.
And interestingly, from Dad, what he said he noticed was how much we just pressured them at the ball, which is something that we've really noticed all year.
Mm.
And while they were still getting some possessions, they were dropping. He noticed that they were dropping a lot of easy marks because of the perceived pressure that was coming as well, and we just then mopped it out of the back half just so easily because of that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I saw on TV. It was interesting because I played a game, and so I was listening to the last quarter driving home, and it was on Triple M, and it was quite amusingly that these footballers obviously never paid attention in physics because they were wondering how Jenkins was getting pushed under the ball. And he's like, he's so many kilos. Yes, but the guy that's pushing him has a lower centre of gravity. Basic physics. Anybody with a lower centre of gravity will push somebody under the ball. But they were actually quite complimentary on there, and then to actually listen to the commentary on the TV, I thought that was quite a breath of fresh air. We normally don't get commentary like that.
No, well, I think people have cottoned on to the fact that we're the real deal now, and they're I wouldn't say getting on the bandwagon, but they're realising that they've got to give us some airplay and some decent commentary because we're going to be around in September.
Yeah, that's true, but I have to say that it does annoy me, though, the way when we kick a goal, there's a certain level of volume in their voice, but when the Victorian team kicks a goal, it's about 2 to 3 times as loud.
Mate, wait till we get Hutto down at Geelong in a couple of weeks, mate. You won't even know we're playing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the one that really got me was bloody Silvani. I mean, first of all, he should never have got the free kick because he had a great big
He was hanging on.
He had a great big handful of levers, Guernsey. At best, it was play on, if not levers free. So this wonder kid who's had 5 possessions for the day, he gets a free kick that he
looks like his dad.
No. But he's going to be something.
He will be, but he's not at the moment. They're talking about him. They talk about him as he's the second saviour at the moment, but the kid, he's not. He just at this stage, he's just a young kid learning his craft. But that should not have been a free. And but when he got the goal, well, I thought they were going to have orgasms. They were screaming so loud.
Where's Mrs. Macca now?
It was like...
You're starting to talk orgasm.
She's got a horrible stare from her then.
You should learn from that, Macca. You should have learnt by now.
There's a line. No, there's a line there, but I'm not going to use it.
Learn but never care.
She's looking at you like, why can't I have one of those?
Oh, you're a cruel man.
Anyway, let's get on to some head-to-head stats. Yes. Come on now. Doesn't son of a look like Sauce though? I mean, his whole mannerisms, the way he kicks, the whole thing. It's like,
and the way he runs.
Oh, it's like watching Steve Silvani all over again.
Run.
Unbelievable, arms and legs going everywhere.
Well, he should really. I was thinking he should really be called Sosob or something.
No.
Apparently they call him Sodge. No, they call him Sodge, which is son of Joe.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, fair enough.
So they're going for the mum.
Going for the mum,
which I thought was quite nice.
Well, I was thinking the son of Sauce, so Sauce.
Head-to-head stats. Come on, let's straighten up.
Okay.
We smacked them in disposals, 100 more disposals, basically 452 to 350. Our ratio was a little bit higher than what we would normally run at. We were almost 1-to-1 kicked handball, which probably came down to the conditions more than anything else. There's a few stats here that probably backed up what you were saying, Nikki, before about pressure and whatnot. Their disposals per scoring shot was horrendous. Nearly 30 scoring shots per disposal. 30 disposals.
The other way around.
Jesus. Nearly 30 disposals per scoring shot, whereas we were down at 16 or just over 16. So we're far more efficient, and I think that was the pressure. I mean, they... 23.5% percentage of inside 50s to scores, and we're running at 44 and a bit percent. So we're far more efficient going forward, and that bears itself out in some individual stats, which we'll go through in a little while as well. Most of the other stats were relatively even. We beat them fairly comfortably in contested possession. Our disposal efficiency was up where we wanted, around about 72%. We did have 15 marks inside 50, and considering the contested mark count wasn't that high, that means that we're pinpointing our passes quite well when we went in cleanly. I did feel we went through a patch during the game where we were kicking blindly, but we sorted that out. I think that was as the conditions changed in the third quarter. Won the clearances by about 8. I thought they had the ascendancy early again in clearances, but we tightened up, and particularly in the second half, I felt that we got on top in the middle and around the stoppage. What else is there? 44 rebound 50s, and a high number of goal assists again, which just when you got a 6 handball chain to kick the ball into a goal from the goal square, you're going to get a pretty high goal assist count, and that's what we seem to be doing at the moment. So nothing really surprising in the head-to-head stats, but it did show, as you rightly pointed out earlier, Nikki, and what I certainly observed from the game, our overall pressure and even the perceived pressure that created led to them being very inefficient. And I think we got a lot of our run and a lot of our drive again from half-back rather than through stoppage or centre clearance work. And that's borne out in some of the individual stats. Anything surprising from that lot for you guys?
Not surprising, but in the second half, I thought that Brad Crouch started to play like Brad Crouch can play. And I think that I think it's all thumbs up from here on with him, because he in the first half he was getting it a bit, but still rushing it just a little bit. In the second half, it looked like he's got the pace of the game under control now, and I thought he did some useful stuff with the ball in the second half, and he's going to end up being a very good player for us for the rest of the year. I reckon he's there now.
Yeah, Wayne's World was asking on the chat, wasn't it about the same amount of inside 50s? It was pretty close, Wayne. It was 51 to them, 59 to us. And that kind of plays into what I was saying earlier about our defensive work being pretty exceptional, because the amount of times they pumped it into forward 50 and we pumped it straight back out again. Whereas when we went into forward 50, more often than not, we scored. So some individual stats. Certainly for mine, Rory Laird was an out-and-out standout best player on the ground. 35 posies from half-back, 18 kicks, 17 handballs.
89%?
Exactly, going at 89%.
I want to know why that wasn't 100, because I can't remember seeing him fluff one up.
Yeah, well, you'd probably have to look at the replay, because I can't think of him messing anyone up either, unless he got an intercept somewhere along the line. He had, 9 rebound 50s or 8 or 9 rebound 50s as well. Just an absolute rock back there. He puts himself in the right position. He reads the play so well, and he's so cool and clean by foot. That outlet pass that he gives is always spot on, and it always, more often than not, is creative.
Not bad for a bloke who came off the rookie list.
Oh, look, he's got, I mean, we've talked before about how good we are at picking up rookies, but he's got to be almost our best. I mean, Rutten was probably the standout for a long time.
Rutten was sensational.
But you
Paul
can't
Fleischer wasn't bad.
No, he wasn't bad either. But for a lad he's a short lad, he's nuggety, but he's so versatile and he's so clean, and we've seen the couple of games that he missed. It really does hurt us down back there. So I thought he was a standout today. Really good game from him. I thought our midfield was fair, but of the midfield, I thought probably Sloaney certainly had the most disposals, 34 disposals, 8 tackles, which is good. But I thought overall, I probably didn't buy into what most of the commentators were saying post-match, that he was in our top 1 or 2. He had 20 contested possessions. It was that kind of game, but he did fluff the ball a bit. 7 clangers. He only went at just under 60% disposal efficiency. Did get 10 clearances. So I don't know, a bit of a licorice all sorts going from Sloaney, I thought.
He was playing more in and under because Thompson. That's what Dad was telling me, that he was observing that Thompson wasn't as in and under. So Sloan was doing a little bit more of it than what he normally has. He put Sloan right up there with what he was doing with getting the ball out, little touches and things like that, and that both of the Crouchers were also playing that inside mid-roll. So Tomo became a bit more outside because of that.
How did you see it, Macca? I thought Sloaney had a little bit of a run, not a run with, but certainly accountability for Cripps at the stoppage. Did you see that? Yeah,
he did. There's no doubt about that. He wasn't, but also what Nikki said was also correct as well, because Cripps is an in and under player to get the ball, and Sloan was taking him head on at that role, and that's one of the reasons why. And Nikki's quite right. That's one of the reasons why his disposal was probably not right up to the standard as normal, because often he lets the Crouchers and Tomo go in, and he's on the one on the outer, which gives him a little bit more time to use the ball. But I actually had him in my best 3, and also you haven't mentioned another guy who would be in my best 3, and I thought, you're right about Laird, but I thought Taylor must get a mention in the best 3, because I thought he was absolutely outstanding.
Can I just point out,
Macca, the reason why I laughed, Cameron Mooney has just given the votes from the game today. 1 vote to Rory Sloan, 2 votes to Rory Laird, 3 votes to Daniel Talia.
Oh, I didn't
Cam Mooney.
I just want to say,
I didn't know.
I just want to say, Macca, that I can't put Daniel Talia in my best 3 when I've only read out 2 people. You've got to give me a moment, man.
I'm a harsh judge. I'm a harsh judge.
I did actually think Tales was our third best. I had him as our third best.
He was sensational.
28 disposals, 7 marks. Just a real strong. I mean, Casbolt, he's not the biggest threat, but certainly the stat, and I don't know how exactly they measure this, but I'll just go by the fact that it must be important because I put it in there. But Talia had 17 1%ers for the game, and if you look at our back three of Talia and Lever and Cheney across that half-back line, they had, 8, 16, 33 1%ers for the match out of a total of 63. So between three of those players, they had over half of our team's 1%ers for the match. Now, as I said, I don't know what's included in 1%ers, but it just shows you how solid and reliable and how they work as a team, that the back six there. And I thought all three of them were good, but Daniel was certainly the standout on Casbolt.
Absolutely, yeah. I loved his game because I thought he embarrassed the big Levi, but kept him down to a really rotten game. But apart from that, he got a heap of the ball. What's it, 29 possessions?
28 posies, yeah. 17 kicks, 28. 11 marks. 7 handballs. 17 kicks, 11 marks. Oh, my God, what's going on with me tonight? 17 kicks, 11 handballs, 7 marks. Jesus.
That's an outstanding game for a defender. One that's usually in the past been known as playing a negating role, but that's an attacking role as well. So he's actually towed up his opponent and got a heap of the ball.
Yeah, I reckon if you looked at his graph for the season, you'd see his possession count gradually increasing over time. You wouldn't have dreamt of getting 28 possessions out of Talia last season. Whereas it's slowly been creeping up. He's had a few 20 posse games, and now is, for him to get up over the 25 posies, a really good second string to his bow now. And I heard some idiot commentating last night that, who was it? Was saying
it would be a Channel 7 one.
It was talking about Alex Rance being arguably the best fullback of the modern era. And
I heard that.
He's not.
I heard that's rubbish.
Are you bloody serious? Have you heard of a D. Talia who never, ever, ever gets beaten? Never gets beaten. If Talia's not put himself back in the frame.
The only one is probably Franklin. Probably the only one is Franklin, who's kind of gotten hold of him a couple of times, and then I think he's only kicked like 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah,
and we know what Franklin can do.
Yeah, and I don't think he's actually matched up on Franklin the last couple of times, has he? Because when Franklin gets up the ground, Tars doesn't chase him all the way up the ground. So, anyway, look, Tars had a great game. Who else was there that was good? Now, of the other midfielders, I thought the Crouch boys did really well. Matt got 32 posies, Brad 29. Brad also the 7 tackles. Both went above 70% disposal efficiency, was really good, and Brad got 7 clearances as well and 3 rebound 50s. Really good signs from Brad. I thought Matt started really brightly and kind of faded a little bit in the second half, Macca. But I thought Bradley's game was really even, and he seems to his peripheral vision's improving, his pace, he seems to be running a little bit more on top of the ground now, so good signs from him.
Yeah, it's funny. It's sort of like they played tag, didn't they? Because in the first half, it was Matt who was dominating and Brad supporting. In the second half, it was Brad dominating and Matt supporting.
Yep. I saw that completely. I thought it was solid from both of them. The other bloke I thought was really good again was Jared Lyons. He's in and out of the game, but I tell you what, when he actually gets his hand on the ball, great mark up forward, but a couple of his handballs were just sublime. They really were. I mean, his stats weren't overly flattering. He had 20 touches, 8 inside 50 zone. We were talking about this last week. Remember, Nick, that it's a bit of an unsung string to his bow that he tends to be the deliverer into forward 50. Of all of our midfielders, he seems to be the one. And again, 8 inside 50s this week from Jared. I thought his game was really solid. 5 clearances as well. Under 70% game time. So as the commentators quite rightly pointed out during the broadcast, he has really cemented his spot and made the selectors continue to pick him, and I don't think he goes out at the moment.
No, he definitely doesn't, and I always take my hat off to somebody like him, because I was one of those that he's called him vanilla, and I doubted whether he'd ever make it as a regular player. But persistence, and once he's got his chance, he's worked very hard, and with every game, I think he's getting slightly better. And as you say, he was the one that was delivering into the forward 50, and most of the time hitting a chest. So I thought he didn't do much wrong all day. Every chance he got, he made the most of.
Yeah, his distribution is really good. I mean, there was one handball that he did over his shoulder down on the member side wing area that set Charlie Cameron free for a bit of a run. And it was just fantastic peripheral vision, but it was also really attacking as well, because, you know, the tendency when you're running against the flow of play is to handball backwards to the guy coming towards you. Whereas he had the presence of mind to actually realise that Cameron was out and put it in front of him, allowed Cameron to run onto it, and Charlie was able to have a couple of bounces and hit someone up. So really, really good footy smarts from Jared Lyon, and I actually like what he brings to the table in terms of our midfield rotation. The other bloke didn't have huge stats, but I thought he was quite influential, and it's good to see him back running on top of the ground, and that's Tex. I thought he had a really solid game, Macca. How did you see it?
Yeah, very useful. He's even when he isn't getting the ball, he's sort of directing what's going on, and his touches were very good touches. In fact, he did have one embarrassing one, and as he said after the game,
but that was all Hendo's fault.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say Hendo called him, and he said he responded to the call, and Hendo had gone. And
Hendo ran off. He went to the bench. Hendo called for the ball and then went, "Oh no, I'm going to the bench."
Well, he doesn't. He wins the IQ award for the day, then, doesn't he?
Let's not talk about
he
Hendo
might be
just
up there
yet.
cock-wombling numbnut.
Look, I think that the key stat for Tex was he had 6 inside 50s, and it's a real strength that he's added to his game, that he gets up the ground, and he's actually those raking long kicks that he does to pick out the bloke, you know, going over the back, whether it be Eddie or whether it be JJ. It's a real feature of his game, and a couple of times he really took responsibility. That long bomb that he kicked, I think, in the second quarter, when we were just starting to tail off a bit and we needed a bit of a spark. And he did have Eddie free in the corridor, but he decided to take the kick outside 50, and it was a real captain's goal. And I just felt like he asserted himself a little bit today, and I love the fact that he's getting up the ground. It's adds real flexibility and different looks to our forward line.
Yeah, the interesting one, I'll just throw this question back at you. We did have about 2 or 3 players that were very, very quiet today, and Charlie, and I guess Charlie's entitled to that because he's had very good games in recent times. McGovern had another very quiet one. Do you think that he's putting
I'd say no.
Well, he only had, I think,
not on Gov.
Sorry?
Yeah, not on Gov at all. He was doing a lot of little taps and pushes that don't come up in the stats.
Yeah, well, I just think that I'm not saying he should get dropped, but he wouldn't want to have too many more quiet ones, McGovern. That's just my thoughts.
Nah, he's not getting dropped.
Now, I'll take you to task on that.
I think they really like the mix that he provides.
Well, I'll take you to task a little bit on that, because I reckon Mitch does need to give us a little bit more. He had the 9 touches, only 3 marks, so 3 tackles. We want a little bit more defensive pressure from him. We want him to be a bit of a marking presence for us. I don't mind if he gets 15 touches a game, but I think he was out of it for long periods of the game today. And given the nature of the game, particularly in the second half, there were opportunities for him to get more involved. And I just feel at times he doesn't quite believe he belongs just yet. And I think that actually showed up when we played West Coast, and he looked a little bit like a fish out of water because I just feel like...
He was trying too hard.
Trying too hard and maybe just not quite comfortable in his own ability yet. We can all see it, but sometimes it takes young lads a little bit longer just to feel as if they belong, and I think that's where Mitch is at the moment.
Yeah, I thought he was overawed against West Coast, definitely.
Yeah.
Charlie,
he was... Sorry, go on.
But when he played the NAB Cup game, we had against Fremantle back in his hometown, he had that same kind of performance.
Mm.
He tried too hard and it didn't quite come off, but it was, and I think that's just going to come with maturity.
Look, I agree with you, Nikki.
He wanted to do well. I
agree with you, Nikki, that he's good to have there because it gives us a totally different mix. But I'm just wondering whether give him a game back at the SAFL, just the one game.
No.
You know,
no.
You don't think so?
No.
Just a thought. I just wonder
he needs to work with our forwards that we have.
Yeah.
I think it's a dangerous thing to drop him just because he can bob up and take a mark and kick you a goal, Macca. And look, I agree with everything that you've said about his output, but at the moment it's not hurting us, and there's no one really pushing up from the twos that you'd think would be able to do a better job. The one that I'm actually concerned about, and we all have been for a while, and Richie Douglas, he got the 13 touches, 2 marks, 1 goal, 6 tackles, which was good. But Richie would have to, if there was a mid-sized forward pushing up from the twos, and you'd probably be thinking a Troy Menzel when he gets right. I reckon Douglas is the one to be under the pump more so than Mitch McGovern, just because of McGovern's tools. So as long as Mitch can continue to have an influence on the game, and Nicky, you're right, he does do the little things like the tap-outs and all the rest of it. He is capable of running through the midfield on occasion. We've seen him run through the midfield on occasion. He just needs to believe a little bit more, and that'll just come with maturity and experience. But Richie Douglas is the one, I think, at the moment that is just flashing in and out of games, and he might find himself under the pump if we start getting a bloke like Menzel really starting to push for selection in the twos. Fortunately, at the moment, for Richie, that's not really happening. But, he wouldn't want to string together too many sub-15 disposal games, even playing off half-forward, because we need more from our ex-club champion, in my opinion.
I agree with that. And the other one that at the moment is not giving us the output that he's capable of is Smith. He's having in my opinion, a bit of a down year this year. I'm not suggesting that he's going to be dropped, but he's definitely playing...
disagree with you.
Oh, God, I knew you would. But I think he's much better than what he's playing.
Over to you, Nick.
He's actually playing a lot more defensive, and teams are very, very conscious of trying to stop his run. And partly why Laird and Lever and Talia, etc., are getting more of that ball and that moving forward was we used to leave it to Smith to do. We're spreading the load a lot more. So we're not getting those flashy runs we used to get out of there. He's still doing them consistently, just not as much. And opposition teams are also putting a lot more effort into him because they know what we can get. But it's that whole team defence that we're working towards. And it was very interesting listening to Triple M. They said, well, he doesn't get the kudos so much in Victoria, but he's having a very consistent year. And that's what he is having. It's just not as flashy as what we've seen previous years.
No, I'm sorry, Nikki. On this one, I'm with Macca. I think Brodie started brightly, but he's not influencing games as much as he could. He's very quick, and he's got a raking long leg. And one of the feature of his games early in the season was his ability to use that leg and to use his pace. We haven't seen a lot of it lately, and yes, he might be playing a little bit deeper and a little bit more defensively. But against a team like Carlton, when we're rebounding a lot off half-back, We need his run and his drive and the ability to allow us to be aggressive. And his lack of run and drive at the moment is reducing our options going forward. I'd like to see Brodie getting into it. I'd like to see Brodie give us more offensively. I think he's doing okay defensively. He's never going to be the best defensive player you've ever seen, but he's doing admirably. But I'd like to see him start to give us more output going the other way.
Yeah, that's the way I see it too. And I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve his spot in the side. I'm just saying that I don't believe he's doing as much as he's capable of.
Watch whenever he gets the ball. Yeah, watch whenever he gets the ball, how close the opposition defenders are, or the opposition forwards who then are turning into defenders. They are absolutely at his... They're really trying to stop him do that run. And I've noticed that so much more this year. The other thing is, I think he's still in the top 10 for metres gained in the AFL.
That's because he's got a nice long kick. And that's exactly the thing. He needs to use it.
He had three, I reckon there was 2 or 3 really aggressive long handballs today.
Yep, absolutely. And one last week comes to mind that was a good 35-metre handball as well. So absolutely right. I think we just need more of it from Brodie. And I agree with both of you. I think we need more from him offensively, but Nikki, I do agree with you as well that I think he is staying back a little bit more, and we are sharing the load in terms of our outlets. We're certainly not that run-and-gun team off half-back that we were early in the season. I think we've become a little bit more considered, and that's probably due to opposition sides obviously seeing the potential danger after the first few weeks when we were getting so much run and carry off our half-back line. So we are needing to be a little bit more considered. But I do think Brodie has been in and out of games. I don't think it's his best season. And I think he could work a little bit harder perhaps to get into the game when we're going forward. I thought a couple more. I thought Sauce did really well around the ground. I thought probably broke even in the middle. I think Cruiser actually had the better of him early. They seem to be getting first use out of the middle a bit, but I think Sauce tightened up in the middle. We changed our setup a little bit, and certainly around the ground, Sam absolutely towed up Cruiser and also the other lad, what's his name, Bishop, I think, was far more effective, and 3 goals for Sauce, so that would probably be his career high, I'd imagine.
Yes, it is.
Equal.
Or it equals.
He's had 3 before, but at one chance he looked like he had a chance for a 4th, but he handballed it off.
Yeah. I thought the knock-on Sauce has always been his around the ground work, and I think over the last probably 4 to 6 weeks he's really stepped that up. He's playing as that extra mid, and he's taking a few grabs, and certainly his ability to push forward and get a couple of goals is a bit of a bonus. And I also thought that he worked back really well. The last couple of weeks, I think opposition have tried to expose him by running their ruckman into the forward lines. Certainly it happened last week a couple of times, and again this week a couple of times. But Cruiser had no influence up forward, and Sauce certainly obviously had influence in our forward 50. So pretty solid game from Sauce, I reckon, in good nick right now.
Yeah, and
he also took a number of really good marks in the defence.
Yes.
The other ruckman for Carlton, his name is Phillips.
Oh, Phillips. Sorry, I thought it was Bishop.
Yeah, Phillips. But no, I thought Cruz, I reckon he's a very disappointing critter, isn't he? Because if I remember, he was the number 1 draft pick, and I know he's had a lot of injury. He's had a lot of injury, but he's just I reckon he's a bit of a hack, actually.
He seems to only play well when he's fired up. His intensity seems to drop off pretty quickly. That's what I've seen, and he tends to lope, and then he gets a bit of a rocket up up him, and he fires up for a few minutes and actually does all right. But he lacks intensity, I think. He reminds me a lot of Kaczynski. Lacks intensity and probably needs the fire in the belly a little bit more.
Very good comparison. But that guy had no awareness of anything. He's getting concussion all the time. But Yeah, I reckon he's a very big disappointment in the sense that he came on the game with a bit of a bang, but I don't know whether it's because of a heap of injuries that he's had, but I'd be very disappointed if I was Carlton. The other one was very disappointing game for them, I thought, was Kerridge. He obviously got himself
He's petered off.
Yeah, I was going to say, he got himself very, very fit at the beginning of the year, Nikki, and he was running all over the ground and on top of the ground, but at the moment he's labouring. He's trying his hardest, but he's looking like a very average player again now.
Yeah, it didn't have much impact. I didn't think after quarter time, I didn't think they had the Cripps tried really hard in the middle. I thought that Cade Simpson off halfback was pretty reasonable. I thought Bryce Gibbs did a reasonable job. Armitage, apart from his couple of goals, didn't really do a hell of a lot else. My overall impression of the game is that we just looked a class above, and they tried hard for as long as they could. But in the end, our class and our talent and probably our ability to execute our game plan better over the course of the 4 quarters was really what got us the 10-goal win, because we didn't. It was. I wouldn't say it was bruise-free football, but it was certainly, for the conditions, it wasn't tough in and under. We tended to sit back a little bit, rebound a lot, and we just looked a class above them.
I reckon that the ball was in their forward 50 in the first half, a lot more than it was in our forward 50. Because it seemed to me that we were sort of, as you said, sitting back, absorbing it and just clearing it, and eventually getting a goal if that's the way it went. But I thought that we didn't really go all out attack, and I think you're right. We seem to have adjusted our game at the moment to make sure that our defence is watertight, and once we've got control of it, then that's when we start to attack a little bit more.
It's quite interesting to watch, Macca, when you compare the way our defence sets up to the opposition, and I noticed it today again, and I've noticed it a couple of times. We always have a player, at least one player, between the last opposition player and their goals, whereas opposition seem to be sucked up the ground, and then we get them over the back, and it's been well documented how many out-the-back goals we've been kicking this year. But the amount of times that we were 1 or 2 behind their last player just allows us not only to contest in those circumstances when there's a quick inside 50 from the opposition, but also to mop up and rebound really quickly. The amount of times you'd see one of our blokes contest the mark, and then the first 2 blokes on the scene was, like a Cole Chaney or a Rory Laird or, someone like that. We don't get sucked up the ground too hard, and we're very conscious of pushing back the moment the ball gets turned over. We rarely get caught out in one-on-one situations that we seem to be able to catch the opposition out so well. And I think our defensive structure was really good today. And I did feel as if we were playing very much we were content to play a rebounding style of football. I'm a little bit concerned about the output of our midfield at the moment. I reckon for the last couple of weeks we've just been a little bit up and down. I wouldn't like to have a start against a top 4 contender as we have done in the last couple of weeks, like our second quarter against Melbourne and our, probably our first half really today. The midfield output was probably only steady. You'd like them to step up the intensity a notch, I think.
I agree. Well, it definitely wasn't good enough in the first half. Our ability to stop them scoring once they try to go forward was really the key to that first half.
Yeah.
And you're quite right. Our midfield really didn't step the pace up until the second half. And that is a bit of a worry for when we're playing Geelong in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes.
But also, we should take lessons from what happened when Geelong lost that time. Danger played an outstanding game, but he was also put under pressure.
No, he didn't. He didn't play very well against us.
No, he didn't.
No, I'm talking about not against us.
On Friday night.
I'm talking about when Sydney beat them.
Oh, okay. Yep. Go on.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
Oh,
he played a crap game.
He had an outstanding first quarter.
No.
Hey, this is fun tonight. I'm not copying. This is you two going at it.
Can I say something? Can I at least finish before you tell me I'm wrong?
Off you go then.
But what they did is they reduced his last three quarters to an average game. His first quarter was outstanding, whether you like it or not. And also, Selwood, he played a pretty good game, but only a youthful game. And after that, if you cut those two out, you cut Geelong out. And I want at least to see our midfield rise to the occasion against Geelong so that we can cut those two players down to average games, and then I think we can beat Geelong.
Well, I'll go you one step better, Macca. I reckon that teams have realised that you only have to cut one of them out. I reckon because Selwood hasn't got the burst that Danger has, I reckon you sit on Selwood, make Paddy be a one-man band, and one player doesn't make a midfield. And I felt like Sydney put a lot of time into Selwood on Friday night. And you're right, he had a steady game, but he certainly wasn't as influential as he could have been. And I think actually that's where they quelled Geelong's midfield dominance is sitting on Selwood. That was the way I saw it anyway.
And the other interesting thing about Geelong, we are digressing a bit here, but the interesting thing about Geelong is that I used to think was a pretty handy midfield with the other midfielders they've got. They've gone back in their shells, all those other midfielders, and they're relying on Danger. They're relying on Selwood. And once those two aren't doing what they are relying upon, an ordinary midfield.
Well, it's an interesting observation because you can see how our midfield has evened out in terms of contributions since Paddy's left. And everyone thought, would go down the toilet post-Paddy, and how it's turned out is that other players have stepped up, and we have a far more even contribution, notwithstanding Rory being a standout simply because he's a talented bugger. But you could be right. Geelong could be suffering from the stand back and watch Paddy show because I don't think they're getting an even contribution from their midfielders at the moment. And that's kind of what I'm seeing is that Selwood's probably the easier one to sit on and to quell. And I think you quell Selwood's output to manageable levels. You let Paddy go and just put as much pressure on him as you can. He's going to turn the ball over a bit. And as long as he doesn't get too much forward to centre, Paddy, he's not going to hurt you too much.
No, I agree. So, go, Nikki.
So why I'm saying he didn't have a good first quarter. Yes, he had 18 possessions. Most of those were tiny little handballs that if they went a metre to a teammate, that was pushing it. So those were his effective possessions. His ineffective possessions were his kicks, which he went at, I think it was 43% or it might have been 48%. One, maybe two, he actually connected to one of his teammates. The rest went direct to the opposition. He got the ball and he completely turned it over. He did not have a good game. If you were a midfielder accumulating that amount of possessions, unless you were doing release handballs for your teammates into space, which he wasn't doing, he was doing them into a congested area, and they were then trying to have to get it out because he didn't really help. He did not have a good game.
Well, we'll have to differ on that because I know that you're right about the efficiency, but in terms of winning hard balls, he won a lot of hard balls in that first quarter.
Anyway, speaking of hard balls, I'm going to be a hard nut and pull us back to the Crows because I'm not talking about Geelong for 20 minutes.
What about the SANFL?
Time. Oh, hang on. Bloody hell. Who's running this show tonight, Nick?
Well, you can't remember how words work, so I was trying to help you out.
I just figure if I say enough words that eventually it'll make some sort of sense.
Okay.
But anyway, a 10-goal win away from home on the MCG is always a good time, and I felt like our last couple of weeks we've navigated a couple of danger games pretty nicely. You'd always like to win by more, but I think Melbourne were up and about. And Carlton were workmanlike, so I think the double road trip that we've had over the last fortnight, we've done pretty well, and we've ended up in third spot with a bullet. So heading back to Adelaide Oval next week against Collingwood, in front of our home deck, will be a nice little tune-up, I think, to go and meet said Cats at Cardinia in a fortnight. So any last thoughts before we move on to the SANFL?
Yeah,
Macca, I'll mute Nikki so you can actually speak.
Okay. I can hear her. No, I just think that we must take this game coming up against Collingwood quite seriously, because they actually did play very good football this weekend, and they've been underperforming to Billio, but also the coach has also got to be accused of not necessarily picking very good teams as well. And I thought he got his selections right for a change. What I'm saying is, I still think we should win the game, and I think, but we could have a situation where it will be a struggle for the first half, and then we should wear them down as time goes on. But only if we play our best footy.
Nikki, I've turned you back on.
No, for me, the danger game with Collingwood is, and I think the reason why they played so well is for Solo's back in their forward line. He just makes that forward line so much better, and he's a very difficult matchup. So
he's a lot like Tuapolo for Hawthorn, isn't he?
Yeah.
He adds another dimension to their forward line, because they are very top-heavy apart from him.
That Browns. And he's hard to match up on because he's got a hell of a leap. So he's kind of like Eddie in a way. He's that small player who can actually play tall.
Well, let's bloody hope that they don't assign Henderson to him, because I'd much rather lose Laird's flair and have him locked down for Solo and allow Henderson to be the outlet player, even though I'd rather Henderson wasn't in the bloody team. Well, we may actually get Searsman back next week. We'll talk about his game in a moment in the twos, but it'll be quite handy, I think, if we got Seed back, just as an extra distributor. I hate Henderson in our team. I really do, particularly down back. And it's no disrespect to Ricky, because I just don't think he belongs in our team, and I know he's there for matchups and balance and structure. But the sooner we don't need to pick him anymore, the happier I'll be. Yeah,
no argument from me. When's Luke Brown coming back? Does anyone know?
He's listed as 1 to 2.
1 to 2 weeks.
Groin soreness. I don't reckon they'll risk him against Collingwood. I wouldn't, because a groin can hang around. I'd rather let him get right, because he's been carrying it, I think, for a few weeks. So I'd rather see him get it right. Anyway, let's move on to the SANFL. We're pushing for time here, so we'll push on. And it was a very good win by the Adelaide Crows SANFL team, getting up over the, at the time, league leaders Sturt by, 8 points in the end? No, 12 points in the end. 13 goals, 9.87 to 11 goals, 9.75. It looks like we kicked the last 2 goals of the match in the last couple of minutes to win the game. So Keenan Ramsey and Mitch Grigg getting the last couple to get us over the line. Some good stats as well. Ellis Yeoman again with 29 stats, just keeps getting the ball, 10 clearances. Is he doing enough? Well, I guess he's doing all he can. He's 7 marks as well, so a good solid game from Cam. Did you go, Nick?
Yep.
You did?
It was freezing.
I bet it was, down at Thurby. Bloody hell. I'll just run through some others, and then you can give us some insight. Really good to see Seeds get in and get 27 posies, 18 kicks, 9 handballs, 11 marks, a couple of tackles, and 4 inside 50s and 4 rebound 50s. So obviously good running from the Seed. Harry Wigg was up there with 24 posies. Tom Doody, I still don't know how to say that.
Dode.
Rhymes with 2 day.
Right, Tom Dode, 21 posies, 10 kicks, 11 handballs, took 7 marks, 2 tackles, 3 rebound 50s. The fact that he's starting to figure prominently the last few weeks in the stats is really promising signs, and it looks like we've got the making. People are a bit doubtful about his ability to develop, but it looks like he's coming along really nicely. Keenan Ramsey, 17 posies and 3 goals with 9 marks. A good game up forward from him. great to see Curtly Hampton back after such a long layoff with 15 touches, 5 marks. I'd be interested to see how you saw his game, Nikki. Harry Deer with another 3 goals, obviously enjoying Luke Loudon not being in the team. Him and Ramsey seem to combine very well. A couple of quiet ones. Mitchy Grigg down 12 disposals, although kicked the clutch goal at the end. Miller with only 10 posies. I don't know what happened there. You might be able to shed some light on that one. Our ruck combination of Hunter and O'Brien had 50 hitouts for the game. Absolutely toweling up poor old, what's his name, Anton something or other, Perella or Panella from Sturt. So, sounds like a pretty solid, I mean, Sturt are a good outfit, so it must have been a pretty solid game, Nick.
The ground was awful, so that needs to be taken into consideration. You
Which
couldn't
is disappointing,
try
isn't
and...
it? That's disappointing.
It was just a bog.
But what else are they doing on there? They play amateur league on there, don't they?
Yeah, I think they play amateur league on there, and our development squad trains on there like Tuesday nights, I think it is. And yeah, it's apparently it hasn't improved for a while. Where they've been training on it. So if you try to chase down somebody, you can't get that sprint off. You just couldn't take off.
Yeah,
and there were a couple of patches where I thought you could happily quite sit down and make some nice sandcastles. There was that much sand there. So probably the one most people are interested is about Hampton. He started off a little bit quiet, and he was a bit off his man. But he really started to get into the flow of the game, and that last quarter, a lot of our drives forward were from him out of that half back line. He just has such confidence in his own ability and his, I'm going to sidestep, sell the candy past you and go. And he just did it. And he's such a nice big body size. He's got that speed to go with it, which is very kind of hard to, as a forward, you're going, how do I bring that down? How do I try and stop that?
Yeah.
Dode the kid has it, seriously. His ability to read the play, it's like watching Lever in the SANFL last year. And Lever's going to have to keep producing in the AFL because I think Tom's going to start breathing down his neck soon. And what is even more impressive with him is that he's 18 and he's now becoming one of those leaders in that back line back there because we don't have Carey. Otten's still there, but we're having mostly a lot of top-up players. We had 6 top-up players yesterday.
Yeah.
6, and we beat Sturt.
Yeah.
Mins is quite a nice little midfielder, and we were putting him in the midfield. I think he might have played more time in the midfield than Greg did. They were very into Greg. Sturt were in his face. I did like the fact that Brodie Martin was trying to be a little shit, and the umpire told him off to stop.
Did he actually say stop being a little shit?
I don't know. It was a bit far away, but if I was the umpire, it probably would have been close to it. He was desperately trying to give away a free, basically, in our forward line, which is particularly stupid. So there really was a lot of angst from the Sturt players towards our players. They were very, very in the face, etc. And the same with the Sturt supporters. So it was hilarious how quiet they got in the last quarter.
Probably overly focused on us by the sounds of it because they're a pretty good team in their own right. They should have just been concentrating on themselves.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think Sturt play slightly more like an AFL side. So even whilst they've got some quick players, they play still more like the AFL side. So that suits our game plan because we're playing the AFL game plan. Who else? I thought Seeds played really nicely. He did have a shocker of a kick, and it was kind of amusing for him. Then he was practicing in the air how to kick after that for a little bit. So I was like, you're testing your hamstrings out, are you, honey? So whilst Ellis Yeoman got a bit of the ball, it kind of wasn't until the second half he really started to do a bit more with it, and I was really pleased to see Wig actually, the goal that he kicked, and we know that devastating boot he's got on him and how accurate it is, and he's starting to use that into our forward 50.
Yeah.
The composure, though, the Ramsey and the Grigg kicks were a bit out, and that wind was really iffy. There was a lot of pressure on those kicks, and more power to those two guys. That was actually
clutch goal kicking.
Yeah, clutch. And I think Ramsey, a few people were thinking he's the one who's most liable to be dropped off in the air. I just think he's got that ability to go forward and back. You can play him as a defender, and he's a good defender. You can play him up forward, and he's a good forward. And he's got a couple of nice little weapons. He's a handy one to have on your list.
I think he enjoys being up forward, but he's been quite serviceable down back as well. So I think you're right. You don't throw away blokes with that sort of versatility if they've got the talent, and I think he's got both. So as long as he keeps working hard, he stays on as far as I'm concerned. Really pleased to hear that Hampton comes up. I'm very bullish about him, and my God, if he can get some match fitness up, bit of a joker in the pack come September, I would have thought.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think there were the three pleasing players for me when I looked up the review, and also what the club had to say about it, was the fact that Hampton got, just as Nicky said, got better as the game went on, and as you know, he has got a real bag of tricks and can play very, very well. And he could be a joker in the pack come the finals. But the club sort of really did give real raps to Dode and Harrison Wigg. And Virtue indicated Harrison Wigg will be playing AFL next year.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't surprise me.
In our midfield.
Yeah.
He's tiny. He's this little slight thing, but he's got no fear. He goes hard because we played him in the back lines last year. He's a really nice, strong little tackler, and he's got speed, and he's a left footer. So we like having that nice little mix in the midfield, and his kicking's just beautiful.
Well, we do lack penetrating kicks in our midfield rotation. You wouldn't call Brad or Matt Crouch penetrating nice kicks. Jared Lyons is all right distributing the ball, but Scotty Thompson's fair to middling. Having another bloke who can actually pump out a 50-metre pass coming out of the midfield would be pretty handy.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And that just reading between the lines, and everything you said about the other players would be true, Nicky, but it just seemed to me that was the way the club was thinking, that these are the guys for the future.
And that's why we have the development team.
Yeah.
And it really is beneficial to have one team where we can play them how we want them to play, but also developing that winning culture as well. Because it's not just that, we're playing in asset structures and that's what we're going to stick to. It's Uni or whoever is the coach in charge for the day, because as we heard that Paul Thomas was in charge last week, we still really want to win, and you can see that on the players out there. And they're, from what I understand, they're very much looking forward to playing finals in the SANFL for the first time.
Yeah, and I was just about to say that win really entrenches us now in the top four on the ladder there. So it looks like we will be playing our first final series in the SANFL, which is great. And it must be a struggle sometimes for the players to A, try and play a game plan that the club wants to implement, but B, also have that obvious natural desire that any footballer has to wanting to actually win the game. So to be able to maintain structure, within the SANFL, which is sometimes a little bit of a scrappy affair on small grounds and, muddy conditions and whatnot, is, probably a bit of a challenge at some stage. So it's really good to see us going well. I'm going to wrap it up at that point. We've breached the hour mark, and probably a lot of that's down to you, Nikki. You're very argumentative today, and I'm a bit concerned. I hope everything's all right at home. And
it's cold.
Oh God, it's freezing at the moment. I've had a crook back from the cold from the last few days. It's a nightmare, really is. But no, it's been a really good discussion. Thanks, Macca, and you go and lick your wounds now, mate.
Oh, she beat me up today, didn't she?
Oh, mate.
Mrs. Macca will like me.
I actually enjoyed just sitting back and listening to it because normally I cop it, but today I could just sit back and moderate, so that was quite enjoyable. But no, enjoyed your input, mate, and yours too, Nikki. Really good insight from the pair of you. So until Tuesday night, make sure, I'm just going to give a bit of a plug to the Crowbar boys who will be posting their podcast tomorrow night. Some really good stuff, and I understand they actually went over to the G this weekend, so I think they'll be recording.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, they're going to be recording, I think, from their hotel room because when they tried to do one from the pub, I think it was against the St Kilda game a few weeks ago, it didn't quite work out the way they had hoped. So they'll be pumped being over there, even though the weather wasn't great. Obviously, we've got Tuesday Night Live. More than likely a player interview. I don't know who yet, but Ryan has indicated that we'll have a player available. You'd like it to be Scotty Thompson on his 300th, but I don't think we'll be that lucky. So that's Tuesday night.
He might have a few other things.
Yeah. In the meantime,
a few other media.
You would think you might have a few commitments. In the meantime, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, get around us on Big Footy, and tell your friends. And until Tuesday night, I will say goodbye to all of you. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, good night, folks.
Bye.